point. So when we had confirmed this FA of 22845 on 9th of April, we had also spoken about how that reference became a swing level. So unless we got a close above that level on a daily basis, that FA failed auction would be in play for that 180R and 280R target to the downside. So let us look at what has happened after that. So once we got that FA, and we had also discussed how most of the times the FA comes in that failed seaside extension. Seaside is known to give a contra move, and it is most of the times led by locals. So which is what explains the high rate of failure in the seaside extension. So we also have seen most of the failed auctions happen in the C period. Not that it cannot happen in other TPOs, but most of the FAs which we have been observing in VTrender happen in the C period. So even this FA which had come on the 9th of April in Nifty futures, this is the April futures chart, came in the C side. So what happened after that is we made a balance the next day, and then but this FA was not tagged. And then on the 12th of April, we went on to complete the 180R target from that FA, which was a 22660. So once we completed the 180R target, what happened was we got an extension handle right at that level. 22681 was an extension handle. This profile on 12th of April was a double distribution trend down profile. So it is very clearly indicating that the sellers are in control, and this extension handle would be our fresh reference. So on this day, the POC did shift to the lows, indicating profit booking by the shorts, but overall the structure was still bearish. So after the 12th of April, we had a holiday, and then when we opened on 15th, we tried to extend higher. There is a small bit of confusion regarding this profile, because here you see the IB was at 22478, whereas actually in the on the NSE website the initial balance high is given as 22488. So in all cases, if that was the case, if we had the IB at 22488, it would have been only this single print of D which went out of the IB and then it got rejected. So in all cases, let us keep things simple. This is more of an advanced failed auction which happened on the 15th of April, which I'll come to later. But we will keep it simple because people who are new to the concept of failed auction, let them have it as a single print which moves out of IB and is swiftly rejected, which happened in this case on the 9th of April. So once there is a range extension to after the initial balance, we want to measure how good the range extension is. And how is the measurement done? It is done in the scale of 1 IB, 2 IB and 3 IB. So if the initial balance range is 100 points, we would want the auction to extend another 100 points when it makes a range extension. But on this day, that was not the case. We were not able to complete the 2 IB on the upside. And what we did was, if we see the market profile chart, we got rejected from an entry into this value. So it was telling us that the auction wants to continue probing lower. So this zone of singles, which was the rejection from this value, it was telling us that it wants to continue lower. And what we did was, we not only completed the 280R target from that FA of 22845, which was a 22476, we went on to form another neutral day. So here again, the buyers had failed and the sellers took advantage of it. So what had started on the 9th of April continued on the 15th. So it was very clearly telling us that the buyers were failing and the sellers were taking advantage of this. So which is why our fresh reference after this 15th of April was the POC and VWAP of this particular day. Because here again, the same thing what had happened on the 9th of April. 9th of April, but 9th of April we had this failed auction. Although we went above this VWAP, we had not taken off this swing reference. But on the 15th, we never the next session we opened lower. 16th was another gap down. And if we go by the market profile references, we took support right above this VPOC, the unvisited POC of 22108 from the 20th of March. You can see these levels are served as important support or resistance when they come back, when the auction comes back to visit them. So when it took support just above this reference and it left a nice responsive buying tail yesterday, it was looking as if Nifty is ready for a bounce. And this is what happened today. And I'll take you to today's chart and I'll take it TPO by TPO and we will see what happened today. So here you can see a representation lower today. In Nifty futures, we opened higher, but we came back into this value, did the 80% rule, and we tried to probe below the value, and we made this new lows in the C period. So the C period low was a very marginal one because the IBL, the first hour low was 22181, and the low which we made in the C side was 22170. So here, when we got rejected and the D period got back above this IB, this was again a failed auction. This was similar to what had happened on 9th of April. So when we saw this, we were looking as if it was looking as if that Nifty is confirming a swing low is in place. I already mentioned we got a responsive tail, buying tail right above this VPOC, and then we got this failed auction. So it was looking as if that the Nifty is done with the downside for this weekly settlement and is more likely to probe higher. So from this 22170, our 180 hour target was coming to 22339. 22339 was also matching with this gap down level. 22342 was the low of 15th of April from where we gapped lower. So this was that double zone matching overlapping level of 22339 and 22342 was our first objective once this FA was confirmed. And once the FA is confirmed on an intraday basis, the VWAP of that particular day becomes the reference. So as long as the VWAP was holding, we were looking at hitting this 22339 and this 22342. And the 280R, in case we would have stayed above that, the 280R would have come to 22508. So what happened today was in the G period, we made a high exactly at 22342. So that meant that the first objective of that FA, which had come in the morning in the seaside, was hit. We completed the 180R. But then what happened was in the I period, we saw a huge liquidation move. So when we are having a neutral extreme day setup, we generally make higher highs, just like in a trend day, we make higher highs on every TPO, which is what we can see what happened. We made a higher high in D, E was inside, but F we made a higher high, G again we made a higher high. H was inside. So ideally for the structure to continue, I should have made a higher high above the G period. But when it broke below the low of the G period, it showed us the change of character in the auction. So this G lows, which was 22306, was a scene of crime for today because this level, breaking of this level was telling us that the auction is changing character. What we are getting on the upside after that failed auction confirmed at 22170 is looking in to be circumspect. And how it got confirmed was it even broke the VWAP. So I'll just enlarge this profile now. So this is the VWAP. You can see we have mostly remained below VWAP. We made this high pullback high in the K period at 22197, which was matching with yesterday's VWAP. So compared first thing what we tried to do in the first half of today was probe higher. But then once we broke VWAP, were getting rejected at yesterday's VWAP. So this was a clear indication that the auction now wants to continue lower. And today again, although we spend sufficient time above the IBH, the buyers fail to extend much above that first objective of 22342. So here again the sellers took complete control and they completed the neutral extreme day to the K period made new lows. The L and M also have made lower lows going into the close. So for now, what has happened here is this FA got revisited on the same day, and this still will be an important reference going forward for the rest of this April series, because this is a point which marked the failure of the buyers again. The sellers took snatched back the control after temporarily giving it to the buyers in the first half of today. So I will take questions and I'll show you some more examples and show you how we can trade using this failed auction. There is one question from Milind. The failed auction is coded in the market profile chart, and you do get the uh, alert when the failed auction is uh, confirmed on the end of the day basis. One ATR into ATR is average true range, and you have several formulas to calculate ATRs. One simple thing is we already have the ATR mentioned in the options table on the VTrender chart. So I'll just quickly go to the options table, and here you can see you have the ATR, a 5 period ATR and the 14 period ATR is there. So you can see in spot the ATR was 192 and 206. In futures, sorry, in spot the ATR was 192. In futures the ATR is 204. So what I do is I calculate a simple high minus low difference of the last 15 sessions, and I have that as a reference for the ATR. So as I said, you have different formulas to calculate ATR. In some formulas, even the gap as is taken as the part of the day's range. So that is how you have different values. But nonetheless, you can use any ATR formula, and or you can use the reference which is given in the options table. The ATR reference is only for us to get one objective of how much the auction can go in that direction. And as long as it remains above the first objective, it can continue to go and tag the next objective. So that is what the ATR calculation is for. So next question is, how would yesterday's VWAP be important in this case? Yesterday's VWAP was not important in the sense till the time we had got that I period move in the afternoon. We were after we got the failed auction to it was today's VWAP which was important. As I mentioned, once you have a neutral extreme setup, once you have this failed auction, and once you are making higher highs, the VWAP of the day increases. But here we saw rejection at yesterday's VWAP. So this value has moved to the downside only later after the huge fall in the K period and followed by L and M and N. When we were trading in the I period, this value was not completely lower or overlapping. We were forming higher value in Nifty futures today. So it was only later when the fall happened and the volumes increased is when the value started drifting lower. And then in the drift, you can also see the K period high is also right at that ITPO's VWAP of 22199, and this is overlapping with yesterday's VWAP of 22199. So when you are comparing in market profile, we compare value and we see how VWAP and how POC is forming compared to previous day. So once previous day's POC or previous day's VWAP is being rejected, you know that it is the direction is on to the other side. So next, in the market profile, you have these spikes, OI spikes. The green OI spikes is increase in open interest, and a red OI spike, a red color is a decrease in OI, open interest. So that is showing you levels where the open interest spike had happened. There was a big change in the open interest. these are also seen in the option charts, and they are a very useful tool to mark important references. And spike is nothing but a complete change in volumes, a quick change in volumes. So, so any more query, guys? So before I move forward, and I will show you some examples, because failed auction happens in all liquid instruments, and they happen on all time frames. In case they happen on all kind, even on option charts. So I would want to show you examples of how a failed auction in Nifty futures continue to give us yeah, important references on the option charts. So as you knew, I will have to share one image because we don't have the 22,000. Give me a minute, guys. I'll just. So I have an image of this 22,800 put option. This was of this expiry, 18th April expiry itself. I hope everyone is able to see the chart. So I hope everyone is able to see the 22,800 put option chart. It's on the screen right now. And here you can see after we got that FA of 9th, this put has given us a FA in the FTPO on the 12th. So this reference of 159, this was a failed auction in this put. So once this 159 confirmed a failed auction in 22,800 put, that became a swing reference that you could take that as your stop loss to hold longs in this particular put. And you could have in fact carried that put even till today, because this is it, today's expiry, 18th April's expiry. So this is how failed auction works on all instruments. So this FA came just above the previous VWAP. As I was mentioning, we see the value and VWAP of previous session to see what direction the current auction is trying to do. So when you get an FA just right at previous value and previous VWAP, you know that the auction wants to move up. So we have few more questions, so I'll just take them and I'll come on to the next option chart which I have. Santosh has a question asking if we have a fixed time of 30 minutes for the MP charts. Santosh, market profile charts are based on 30-minute TPOs, time price opportunities. So which is why in the market profile chart, these are fixed. These are the building blocks of a market profile chart. So we don't want to tamper with that. But in the order flow, we have time frames right from 1 minute, 3 minutes, 5 minutes, 15 minutes, and 30 minutes. So for the market profile, we would continue to have the 30-minute blocks because that is what it is based on. The entire concept of market profile is based on 30-minute TPOs. So there was a question on COT. I think Shai has answered that in the text box. So I would go on to the next question from normal failed auction is targeting 1 and 2 ATR. Does this also remain same for opposite side like today? Yes. So what we do is ATR is just we want to measure how much the auction can move. So like for example, today we had a failed auction at 22170. So once that failed auction got negated, again on the downside we will look for that 1 ATR target. So 1 ATR target on the downside for us was coming to 22001, which is also matching with the POC of March month. So which is what we were expecting into the close. We were all of us in the we trained a trading room, mentoring trade room for traders, were expecting the 22001 to be tagged in Nifty futures, but we made a low of 22027. So we just missed that by a margin of 26 points. So yes, once a failed auction gets negated on a uh, good confirmation, good decisively, we can look for 180R and 280R in the other side. Santosh has a question asking if we have VWAP against each period. Yes, we have VWAP of every TPO marked. You need to watch the market profile chart in split mode, and you can see the VWAP and the POC marked for every TPO. So whenever you have a big range TPO, for example, what happened in the ITPO today, you can take the VWAP and the POC of that particular TPO along with the halfback. We also have a halfback mark for every TPO. Halfback is nothing but the midpoint of the entire 30-minute range. So that also is an important reference. Halfback are more used on spot charts because we don't have volumes there. But in futures, we have the POC and the VWAP of every TPO. So those can serve as important references. Yes, and for COT we use the T plus 10 rule. So if you're looking at the 30-minute time frame, you look at what is happening in the COT of the last 10 bars. Same with the 3-minute time frame. And we have our bias built on the larger time frame. So we see what the auction is doing on the 30-minute time frame, and we have the bias based on that. Okay, so I'll just switch on to the next option chart, which is and show you couple of more failed auctions which we got in the put options. And I'll also tell you how you can. So this is the 22,600 put option chart on your screen. So as we saw, the 22,800 put had given us a failed auction on the 12th. So it was not a sell, right? So for simplicity's sake, we will only look at a single TPO coming out of the initial balance and getting rejected. We will come to advanced failed auction maybe in a session later, and I will explain how we can take that, because failed auction is nothing but we are watching where a seller or a buyer has failed. And how do we calculate that? We calculate that by seeing the buyer or the seller has failed to meet his objective after extending the range. So once that is not happening, we can definitely look at that setup as a failed auction. So here on the 12th, we will not take this as a failed auction on the 22,600 put, but on the 15th of April, being below the IP, 22,600 PE gave a failed auction on the 15th of April. So this becomes our reference. And as you can see, this POC and VWAP of this neutral extreme day has not been tagged, and we went on to make higher highs on all all these days. So even here, if you fail, this had given a failed auction on the upside. This put had given a failed auction on the upside today, but once it went on to hit this HVN, took support and confirmed that reversal, took out this, negated this failed auction, it went on to give a close onto the highs. In fact, the I period made a swipe higher to 460. So this is how you can look at how the failed auction on the main instrument, the Nifty instrument, once you have a failed auction, how they get complemented by failed auction in the uh, corresponding puts or the calls. In case we were getting failed auction on the upside in calls, they were good references to go short in that call option. Same thing on this 22,600 put, which is given as a failed auction on the 15th. See 22,200 chart. of today, very minute lows, marginal lows, and were rejected. And they went on to break the IBH. So this was a failed auction. I'm not the levels are too tiny, but I'm just showing this as an example of how this failed auction can be a reference. So once you have a failed auction, the VWAP of that day becomes an important reference. So the moment the VWAP of this CE, which was a 78 at the time the IP rate broke it, it was telling us that the upside for the day is done. And in fact, this VWAP breaking was a good opportunity to short this call. And the break of this failed auction, you can see once it broke, it never came back to this level. So this is how we can observe failed auction even on the option charts, and you can take it in conjunction with the failed auction of that particular spot or futures index. So any more queries, guys? We can go for the question and answers before I think we can wind up for the day today. Milind is asking if there are any checklist or anomalies before you when trading failed auction. So failed auction, the failed auction itself is the reference point for us. Unless that is taken out on a closing basis or on the order flow, we get an initiative buying reference. If the failed auction is on the upside, we will stick on to that swing reference. And on the downside, we will see how it is faring below the IBL of that particular day. Whenever the failed auction has happened, you have the IBL, and the VWAP of that day becomes one important reference. So on the downside, we will look for that 180R objective. If it continues to remain below the 180R, then we will look for the next 280R objective. And once, for example, today we got a failed auction at 22170. In case we would have closed as a neutral extreme to the upside, and that failed auction would have remained, then we would have said that the failed auction which started the move down from 22845 is now met a opposing force at 22170, which marks the completion of that IPM, the initial price movement. And now we can look for stage 2 of the Stedelmayer distribution. But what happened today was that failed auction got negated. So we are still looking for more downside in this series, and the 22170 along with today's VWAP would be the reference for us going forward. So, and we get these failed auctions on all instruments, and whenever we get them on Nifty and Bank Nifty, we get them on spot also. They act as very useful tools. A very quick look I would want to show you on a failed auction which got negated, and then that failed auction will now be a important swing reference. So which was a 22775, I think, and then it went on to tag that failed auction. And what it did in the process was, you can see on the 10th of April, we left this small E side exposure at 22773 was a failed auction. So what happened on 12th was we negated, we broke this failed auction and we closed below it. So then, as I was explaining, then we would look for, on the close of 10th of April, we were looking for 180R upside from this point 22678. But now, because this failed auction has been negated, this becomes a swing reference, and we were looking at 180R and 280R on the downside from here, and this will continue to be one important reference in spot for us going forward. So this is how you can watch these failed auction even on the spot charts. And had a similar lows of 2211 was the failed auction in spot, which got broken, and now this will be one reference in spot going forward. So any more questions, guys? So I think from our side we are done for today's session. In case we have any queries, we can answer them before we can wind up for the day and take a break. So just to repeat, a failed auction is a concept, a very important concept in market profile, which we look to identify which of the buyer or the seller has failed. And once one particular player has failed, the other player takes advantage of that situation. And that gets confirmed in form of a failed auction as the other party moves the auction in his favor. So from there, we have objectives in terms of 180R and 280R, which we track, and once we hit any of these objectives, it is like one profit booking level. So for example, today's failed auction, when it hits the 180R target, definitely it is the chance of booking out longs and trailing rest to cost. So that also helps us, this 180R and 280R helps us to get practical objective profit booking in place. Because a move like today which happened in 5 minutes, we I think we fell from 22 320 to almost 22 150. So these kind of moves, unless we know that the objective is hit and we have to book out our longs, we don't get stuck. So Santosh has one question asking when we should see MP on spot charts and when on continuous futures. So we all the signals come on futures chart, so we watch the current series futures for our signals and trades. In even in options, we look at the current weekly settlement options. So which is what, because the signals are where the volumes are, and we follow the order flow signals also. So we would want the signals to be there on the futures. So spot we use for longer time frame charts, because on the weekly and the monthly, and especially when you are nearing a monthly expiry and when a new expiry, new calendar month is starting, we look at those spot higher time frame charts of weekly and monthly. So that is when we see. And for the first week of expiry, whenever a new expiry is starting, for the first 3 to 4 sessions, it is better you go with the series futures. Like in the drop down, you have Nifty. Nifty is default continuous futures. Then you have date wise Nifty futures. You have Nifty 25 April, which is the April series. You have Nifty 30th May, which is the May series. So for example, in the coming week, when we are approaching the expiry of April, which is on 25th April, for the time from 26th of April to the next 2 3 days, when you are watching the May series, it is suggested you open the 30th May futures chart. And once the first 3 4 sessions are done, you can switch back to the continuous futures chart, because when a new series is starting, the inventory is getting built up. So which is why we would want to get levels only from that particular series which is in play. And once that inventory gets built up, then they almost overlap with the earlier references. So hope that helps on when to use the continuous and when to use the spot. So any more queries, guys? Or I think we are done for the day and we can wind up. So fine, then there no more questions. So thank you for joining in, guys. And we look forward to having your support and having your participation in sessions like these. We want to cover whatever aspects we have in market profile and order flow in our sessions, and also talk about how we look at options to trade on intraday levels, and hope it helps all of us to get on the same level. So thanks for joining in. Have a great evening. Signing off.